This is going to be the first lesson of 3 lessons that we are going to have about SMART-Analyzer. In this we are facing the basic of the kinematic protocol creation. We are going to analyze the flexion extension of the elbow, and I already acquired a trial and I'm going to display it for you. Here there is the upper limb evaluation. Here is the trial that we are going to analyze. This is the first one that is already tracked because you can see that there are already the red dots. We're going to use the second trial. Here there are the markers acquired inside the volume calibrated in the lab. Here, if we get closer and we zoom in, we can see the reference of the lab, so X, Y, and Z. And here the markers. As you can see, we placed 7 markers over the subject, and in particular, I can show you the movement by clicking on play. This is the left acromion, C7, right acromion, the 2 condylus of the elbow and the 2 condylus of the wrist. But now I think that is going to be very important to name these markers. This is the procedure called tracking of the trial. So basically we associate a model, so an anatomic model in this case, because we choose to place the markers over anthropometric reference points. And we are going to create a model to have a label connected to each marker on the scene. The difference between an anatomic model and a technical model is that the first one, as I told you, requires the marker to be on bones protrusion, skeletal protrusion of the subject, so points that are referenced in the anthropometric field. For the technical model, or for the called also protocol, technical protocol, we can place clusters of markers, at least 3 markers, for each segment that we want to be focused on. So basically we create the reference system for each segment, so we are not looking at the anatomical point. Both protocols can be applied. Today we are going to talk and visualize which is an anatomical protocol. So, as I told you, we need to create a new model. So to do this, we click on New Model. Another window opens. I enlarge it for you. And here you can see that there are several tools. We need to create a model that recalls us which is the position of the marker in the space. So we select this tool, Marker Creation Tool. As I told you, we have 7 markers on the scene, so basically we need to create a protocol, a model with 7 markers with particular links, marker by marker. So we start with the first one here, C7, the other acromius, the 2 condylus of the elbow, and the 2 condylus of the wrist. So we have 7 markers. But we need to connect these markers, so we are going to use the tool of link creation. Starting from the C7, we connect to the first acromion, to the other one, and we go back to C7. You can see that just by clicking, okay? Then we have to select the acromius on the right, connect it to the 2 condyles of the elbow, and then connect also the wrist. Okay? Once the marker is yellow, it means that from this point is going to depart the connection to the other markers. Of course, looking at markers called M1, M2, M3, M4, and so on, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So we need to change the label of each point that we placed on the model. So we click on Labeling Tool. Another window appears, and we can edit each label of the marker. So marker 0 is the acromius on the right side, on the left side. Then marker number 1 is C7. Number 2 is acromion on the right side. Marker number 3, lateral elbow. Marker number 4, medial, let's put mat, elbow. And the 2 condyle of the wrist, the lateral one and the medial one. Of course, here we can type wherever name we want, but I suggest you to choose some labels that are also easy for you to understand in which point of the body are going to be placed. Once we have the model, we have to save it. So we click on Save Model, and we just need to type a name. We select the correct folder in the computer, My Captures, Models, and we type the name that we need to. Upper limb model. Okay, so now this is our model that is called upper limb model. But now I need to tell my trial that this is the model I have to be referred to. So I select the marker, just by clicking on the marker, and I select which is the name of the marker that we are using. Acromius, C7, acromius on the right, lateral elbow, medial one, lateral wrist, and medial wrist. You can see that basically automatically all the connection that we create here, we can see it over here. Okay, so now I can enlarge my screen and just check that during the complete acquisition I don't have any loss of marker. So I click on play. Here we can see that we have a phantom marker. Okay, so be careful not to select this as an acromius, but this in the front. We click on play. And here is our trial completely tracked. I save the data. Here there are the markers recognized to be part of the acquisition. I click over OK, and my track now is completely tracked. Okay? Now we have to switch over the processing part. So let me open SMART-Analyzer. Okay. And I will close the tracker. Okay. Now, this is the first and principal window of SMART-Analyzer. From this window, we have the chance to open files, to modify the settings, for example, of the measured units. So for all the measures that we can do, we can define the units that we want to use, the number of decimals, and the standard deviation confidence. We can open a protocol that already exists, or we can create a new one, as we are going to do. We can decide to open the file, to open an archive, to open a normative band, import .txt files. So basically we can put inside the SMART-Analyzer a lot of different kinds of acquisition. In this case, we are going to click on Open. We are here, Webinar Upper Limb, and we select the second one that, as you can see now, has the 3 red dots, belonging to the fact that we tracked the trial. We open this file. Automatically, the 3D viewer that we saw before appears. And here we have our trial. And you can see that we just see what we tracked before. Okay? Here, in the folder of the trial that we are analyzing, that is test03.tdf, Here we have inside the trial two different folders. The first one is the 3D points track. If I open this folder, I can find all my markers here. Each marker is composed by the three components of the movement of this point in the space. So basically, the movement of each marker in the volume that we calibrate is referred to the absolute reference that is over here. Reference that is here as well as a folder. We can find the reference of the lab, of course, the three components, and the origin of this reference. Okay, so this is what we find once we open a trial that we have to analyze. Okay, because up to now we didn't do anything. We can close the 3D viewer. If we want to open it again, we just drag and drop the complete folder of the trial on the gray part, and we can see it again. Now we open the portion of the software that allows us to create a new protocol. Here there's the window, we can enlarge it, and here there are several tools, okay? What is important to underline is the fact that these tools are organized with a certain logic. On the left column here, we can find all the evaluation over 3D components, so 3D velocity, 3D acceleration, 3D points, and so on. So 3 dimension on the left, 1 dimension on the right. So how can we understand which is the tool that we can use? First of all, looking at the topic. So if we are talking about velocity, points, acceleration, angles, and so on. Looking at the 3D or 1D, so depending if we want to apply the analysis over the 3 dimension or over just 1 dimension. And what is important is to always know which is the output of my processing. So if my processing leads a point to become a velocity, I'm not going to have a look to these tools, but I'm going to have a look at velocity tools, okay? So we need to be focused on the fact that we need to know how many dimensions we want to consider, which is of course the topic of my analysis, and what is going to be the output of my processing. Okay. I want just to show you one simple tool just to show you how they work usually. I have one or more input and always one output. In this case, I select a tool that allowed me to create the temporal mean of an object track. If I select, I can show you here, the output is going to be 1D point, okay? If I choose to apply this operator over the 3 dimension, all the 3 dimensions, so X, Y, and Z, of the acromius on the left, this is not going to be used on this field. I need to select just one component in order to have 1D point, okay? So did you see that if the component is, if the input is the correct one, the dot is going to be red and not gray as it was before. First of all, it is important to interpolate a kinematic track because we want to have all the track complete. What does it mean to interpolate the track? It means to be sure applying a certain algorithm to have the complete track with no holes. So I don't want to have holes inside my track. So it's better as a safety procedure to interpolate the track because this time the acquisition was performed good and we do not have any lack of data inside the track of the markers. But in case there is some problems about reflections or something like that that make us miss some position of the marker during the acquisition, of course it is important to have it completely interpolated in order not to lose any information. Now we are going to do it we can do it over all the markers. So we select the 3D point tools, operators, and we look for this operator, interpolate track, interpolation of an object using a cubic spline, because basically we interpolate a track using another function that is going to follow the track and to fulfill any lack of information. This is the tool that we are going to use, and we start by drag and drop markers from the left side to the right one. This is the hold movement, and this is the new one. You can see that in this case they are completely the same, but we don't know every time that we are going to use again this protocol, which is going to be the quality of the track that we acquired. So I change the name, so I can rename the output, call it C7I, that stands for interpolated. I can really I can copy and paste all the times that I want this operator in order to have it on the other markers. So I'm going to get the acromius. Here I have a warning that tells me, okay, be careful, because the name of the output of this operation already exists in this trial, so I need to change it. So I will call it acromius right side interpolated, and so on. So I can still do it for the side that I need. So lateral elbow, medial elbow. That message is always because I already used that name, so every time I paste it, you can see that the name, it is always the same of the first one that I copied at the first place. Lateral wrist, and medial wrist. I missed just one marker, that is the acromius on the left side, and I will put it here, acromius left side interpolate. You can see that every time I create something with a processing here on my report, it is going to be displayed over here. So I will have C7 interpolated, acromion right side interpolated, and so on. So everything that I create here can be found here. Okay? Then we are going to see how to create a 1D 1D angle of the flexion extension of the elbow. So basically, I'm going to use, let me show you the viewer. I'm going to use the acromion, the medial point between those two condyle of the elbow, and the medial point of the wrist. Okay, in order to define which is the 1D angle of the flexion extension. The 1D angle, it is important to be aware of the fact that a 1D angle is an angle that moves, so change the dimension on one plane. So what I'm going to do is to create a medial point between these two markers and the medial point between the two condyle of the wrist, in order to have a 1D angle of the flexion extension of the elbow during the movement. Okay, so to create this, I need to create a virtual marker between the condyle of the wrist and the elbow. To do this, I need to know which are the markers that I'm going to use, and I need to split the marker in I need to split, the distance between the marker in order to have it in the middle, another point. So first of all, I need to find the operator that allows me to create this this medial point. So I look over 3D points and I look for 2 points and the scalar. Okay, this allows me to create a 3D point defined by 2 points and the scalar. The scalar is going to be the value, the number value that I need to define on my own to create something that is going to fall inside the middle of this distance. So I click over this track. You can see that in this case I have 3 inputs and 1 output. That is always going to be a 3D point. I want this point to be created in the middle of the distance of these 2 markers, so I select scalar, input. This input is going to be fixed, so it's not going to be variable and is going to stand always as I run the protocol. That is going to be half point. When I click over OK to confirm the name of the input, of course the software asks me which is the value of this input. That is going to be half, so 0.5. I click over OK and I have my half point. I want to create an half point between the 2 points of the elbow, so I will select the lateral elbow, the medial elbow, interpolated of course, because we have the chance to use the most complete trial, and the half point. This is going to be medial point elbow, and if I move over the 3D viewer, you can see that here I have my new point. Okay, I drag and drop this point that I just create. We can do the same thing between these 2 markers. Okay, so we copy and paste this operator, and this time we are going to use the lateral wrist, the medial wrist, and the same half point, because we want still to be in the medial point of the wrist. This is going to be medial point wrist, and if I drag and drop over the viewer, you can see that here is my point. Okay, as I told you before, every point, as soon as it is a 3D point, it is composed by different components. So on the X direction, Y direction, and Z direction. Now I'm going to create the angle. Of course, this angle is going to be on just on one plane. So at the end, from the conjunction of the 3 points, I'm going to get just one track. That is going to be the flexion extension angle during the complete movement. So if I want to have an angle, I need to look for the creation of the angle. So I look for the chance to create this angle. That is going to be, let me look for it. Angle between 3 points. I have my 3 points because are acromius, medial elbow point, and medial wrist point. So I just drag and drop as we did to create this angle. So acromion on the right side, medial point elbow, and medial point on the wrist. This is going to be you can see 1D angle, so it's going to be 1D flex extension. Oh, sorry, I type it wrong. 1D. This is going to be my flexion extension angle during the movement of the flexion extension of the elbow. Okay, remember that we start the acquisition. Let me show you all together these two elements. We start the acquisition with the elbow completely extended, and we go through a condition of the flexion. I just want to reduce it just to show you together that if I click play over here, also my angle is going to move according to the reconstruction. So you can see that we start from this angle that is like close to 180 because we have in completely extension of the elbow, and we go down. So basically every time I flex my elbow, the angle, of course, between these 3 points is going to decrease and increase again once I extend it again. So if we want to see if we did it correctly, we just need to scroll the trial and see, sorry, let me go to the beginning, and see if our angle movement is connected to the real acquisition that we did. Okay? Now, we can, for example, decide to define the range of motion of this 1D angle. Okay? Of course, the range of motion, what it is? The range of motion is done making a difference between the maximum extension and the maximum flexion in order to have which is the maximum movement that this angle can cover. Okay, so what is important is to select the maximum over the track of the angle, of course. How can we select the maximum over the angle is using the event tool. We click on event and we select event sequence on one object, because of course we are not going to get just one maximum, but we are going to get more than one. In this case we have one input and of course one output. The output in this case is going to be a sequence of maximum. Okay, to make this operator work, I want to put inside an object that is, in this case, is going to be the angle. So I drag and drop. Here I still have my reconstruction, and here I have the chance to tell my my software to select the local max in this trial. To let me I ask him to show me which are the maximum point of each of all the trial, or I can decide to select them manually. So I will get the first one, the second one, the third one, and the last one. So these are going to be the element of, sorry, I have to reduce the window because due to the resolution I will not get this point that is here to click OK. So these are going to be the max of the 1D angle. Now I copy it, sorry for before, and on the same track I want to select the mean of the 1D flexion extension. So in this case are going to be this, this, and this. Once I have the maximum point and the minimum one, I can define which is the range of motion. So I just need to do the I just need to select maximum less minimum. So I will have the difference between two objects always in the events. No, sorry, I need to know which is the, here we have the timing, of course, sorry, I switch a passage. We have the timing in which I have the maximum. I want to know which is the value of this maximum angle, so I just need to use another operator, this time on the 1D angle tool, in order to know which is the value correspondent to the event that we just select on the track. So single object of a track defined by an event. So I will need to put as an input the angle, of course, and the events that we just select manually. These are going to be the max angle values, and this time are going to be as degrees. Okay, same thing for the minimum. So I copy and paste, this time same angle but different events. This message is always the same, telling me that I need to change the name, and I will have minimum angle values over here. Now I can define which is the average value of the maximum and the minimum, selecting the max min operator over a sequence. So I take all the maximum, and it's going to be average maximum angle, and same thing for the minimum. I need to change the name. Once I have the average max and the average minimum, I can make the difference to define which is the range of motion. So I will select math operators, difference between two objects, and I will have max less min in order to have my range of motion of 1D angle. That is around 123 degrees from the extension to the flexion. Now, so we have the maximum events. So the maximum events, as I told you, are the events corresponding to the maximum extension. So from the extension to another extension, I have a cyclic movement, okay? Because I start from an extended position and I go back to the extended position. So, for example, I can see what happened to my angle during this cycle between one extension and the next one. So I will select 1D angle, event operators, and event defined cycle. So the time normalization of an object track between respect to one event, okay? So respect to the same event. So I get my 1D angle, and I want to see what happened between the events in which I'm in a complete extension. So this is going to be my cycle angle, and this is the sequence from the extended position, flexion, extension again. And we can see that we did it 3 times. So it is okay according to what we saw in the reconstruction. We can still have the average cycle that we still select from the angle, max min operators. This time is going to be the cycle sequence mean, so the cycle mean in a cycle sequence. So we just drag and drop and we have the mean cycle flexion extension. That is going to be this. So the average cycle compared coming from the 3 cycles that we can have due to the fact that we have a certain number of events. Okay, so you can see that we have the average cycle and the standard deviation around the line. Okay, now last point, how to save it once we create everything. So we click on Save Protocol. Of course, it's going to ask me to select a name, to type a name for my protocol that is going to be webinar upper limb. I save it, and here is the point in which we have to pay attention. Here on the right we have just one acquisition, okay, in this case. Sometimes we can find also the information of the patient. Now the software is asking us to select, or better, to tell him which is the sequence of events that the protocol requires to functioning in the good way, in the proper way. In this case, we just need to have a trial of flexion extension. So my protocol sequence is going to be flexion extension trial. If I check this box here, I can tell my protocol, okay, this trial can be multiple, so everything that I do as a processing can be repeated over all the trial of flexion extension you put as an input. So I type the name, if I want I select multiple, and due to the blue arrow in the middle I can make the association, and I click OK. So now my protocol is saved, and when I'm going to open it again, as we are going to see the next time, it's going to ask me for a flexion extension trial, for one or more flexion extension trials.